Welcome to CramerSez. CramerSez. Be part of the show at CramerSez.com. Interact on Twitter at CramerSez. Now, Kramer Says.
We'll do this right here. That was generally the way that we'll get this right here in a second. That was generally the way that you got your voice heard, was in radio stations across the country. You could go out and tell the local people what you thought. And slowly, station after station across the country, they've taken away your voice. And the only voice that the people have besides their own is that of journalists. And what do we have right now? Well, we've got a mainstream media that has forgotten what their role is, has forgotten what their job is, has forgotten that they are the fourth wall against everything that happens. They are the fourth estate. They're supposed to stand strong against all powers in our nation and report accordingly and report honestly to the people, but they're not doing that anymore. And so now it's imperative that we, the people, be given the opportunity to begin, again, raising our voices, letting our politicians know who we are, what we expect, and what we want from them, and not be silenced anymore. So if you want to, if you got the inclination, right now is the time to let your voice be heard. You can call me at 877-619-3899. That's 877-619-3899. I'd love to hear from you and your input on what's going on in the country. What is wrong? What is right? What's going well? What's going wrong? And if we can find out and get a baseline of where the country really is and what's important to the American people, not this trans stuff, not this LGBTQ stuff, not all of the issues that we're hearing about across the country, of all the rights that suddenly people have left and right. The only right that we don't have anymore is the right to speak freely. So that's what this program is about. If you want to call in and let your voice be heard, I'd love to hear from you. The number is 877-619-3899. And it's time that the American public speak up. Earlier today, we had a situation where Mike Bannon of the War Room was talking with a gentleman by the name of Dave Bratt. And Dave Bratt has some insight on what he thinks should happen immediately to the Fed because of what's happening with the bankings. We're going to go ahead and go to this, and we'll come back and start taking your phone calls at 877-619-3899 right after this. Well, maybe not. Let's do that.
Accommodated and validated every move we're talking about here. We need to get rid of the accommodated and validated every move we're talking about here.
Learning this as
we need
well.
to get rid of the Federal Reserve Bank. We're talking about bank nationalization. It already happened with the creation of the Federal Reserve System. It's just that the populists now are catching on. Now they've learned how to do math thanks to this show and others. We've already nationalized banks. Now they're just getting more sophisticated, and they're using this crisis, which they're master at, to further nationalize the banks. We go back to 07, 08, John Taylor. Don't take it from Dave Bratt. Take it from Stanford economics, the follower of Milton Friedman, who won a Nobel Prize for monetary theory. John Taylor will tell you, and I had it wrong back then, 04, 05, the Federal Reserve printed too much money and caused. A lot of things are correlated here. And Steve Bannon has been 100% on the woke stuff and the blah, blah, blah. That ain't the thesis. And even the Biden spending cannot be done unless it's accommodated by the Federal Reserve. I had a couple of graphs on yesterday. The Fed, wham, M2 goes through the roof to accommodate the government spending, which is nuts. right? But asking Biden and the Democrats not to spend is like saying Karl Marx has a heart for humanity. It's not true.
No. This is called, hang on. This is called fiscal domination. They've allowed, they've allowed the Bidens and they've allowed the accommodationist Republicans to do this. And the Fed went along with it. And that's why in this jam. Let me go back to Navarro.
Congress is not doing their homework. And the
Listen
Congress
here.
needs to call for the end of the Federal Reserve.
That's it right there. Congress needs to immediately call for the end of the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve doesn't benefit you. It doesn't benefit me. It doesn't benefit the American people. It benefits those that are at the top of the top. And we're not talking about the 1% anymore, people. I'm so tired of hearing about this goddamn conversation about the 1%, the 1%, the 1%. The 1% in this country, the person who qualifies to be in the 1%, okay, makes $380,000 to $500,000 a year. The median and the average is around 390, 300 or 410, somewhere in that ballpark. That's the average 1%er. Those are your doctors. Those are your plumbers, the guys that own a small HVAC company. That's who the vast majority of the 1% that everybody on the left wants to villainize. And what they don't understand is that 1%, we're the employers. We're the small business owners. That's where that 1% comes from. We're the ones who stepped up and rolled the bones and said, we're going to invest our time and our energy and our money and our blood and our sweat and time away from our family to be able to build something. And we've been rewarded for that, for delivering a service, for delivering a commodity, whatever it is that we delivered, we've been rewarded for doing that. And so what we've got now is we've got politicians in place that don't value that anymore. They don't think that what you have to say is of any value because you're in that 1%er and you're not paying your fair share. Meanwhile, we are penalized time and time and time again for what we bring to society. You're live on with CramerSez. What's your name and where are you calling from? Hello?
Hi, are you talking to me?
I am talking to you.
Yeah, hi. This is Brian. I'm calling from Illinois. I just wanted to ask you, with Ron DeSantis not in the running right now, but yet you seem to see all these rhinos suddenly stepping up to back him. I wonder if that's a setup.
In what way?
They don't have all this. Well, they don't have all the history with Trump that they don't have all that with DeSantis. So it's easier for them to fight off Trump than it would be DeSantis because they don't have all that stuff there.
Well, what do you mean by what stuff? What are you talking about?
He's the bad guy.
Okay, but what?
Well, I mean, they've already built this history, this supposed history with Trump. They've already got all these people already on board thinking Trump's the bad guy.
Right.
They don't have that with DeSantis yet. So if they make him look like a bad guy, then everybody votes for Trump and they don't want to support DeSantis. And then they're faced with Trump and they can still throw the kitchen sink at Trump.
Well, I think that Bill Maher put it best. I think that Bill Maher said, who wants the cover band when the real band is still touring? And that's what we've got with Trump and DeSantis right now. They're calling DeSantis, MAGA light. Well, no, I don't want MAGA light. I can have MAGA. I don't need MAGA light. Mm-hmm. I can go get Trump. That's who I can vote for. And I think that that's what they're seeing in the polls. What they've tried to do is they've tried to take a guy who has delivered on as many promises as the system would allow him to deliver on. And it's time for the American people, you, I, and everybody else, to start letting all these other rhinos and these establishment guys, because that's what the Republican Party is full of. One of the reasons that Trump was such a destroyer to the party and to the status quo, number one, is because he came in and told truth. That's number one thing. He started telling this person's doing stuff. But the most important thing that he brought to the table was he wasn't owned by any of them. He was an owner. He wasn't a king. He was a king maker. He was the guy that the kings and politics came to for money. So he knew how the system worked inside and out all too well. And what you could and what you couldn't expect from these people that came in now to destroy him. So that's the benefit that he brought. Now, I'll put it this way. I don't think Trump's perfect. There's a lot of things that I wish Trump would have done differently, right? But I think that we have that with all people in our life. What we need now, though, and I hate to say this, I like what Ron DeSantis has done in Florida, but sadly, the people that are coming behind him to support him, they're the establishment guys, and they can't be trusted. The Bushes, the Romneys.
And I think that's a setup, to be honest.
And how so? Explain that.
Well, because I mean, like, everybody is supporting Trump. I mean, granted, the guy's already done the job. He knows what to do. He's already handled it. He's shown he can handle it. But DeSantis is the up and comer, and I think they're trying to squash him now while they can.
You mean Trump is trying to squash?
I should say.
If you're saying that Trump's team?
No, I don't think Trump is. I don't think it's Trump. I think it's the Democrats and the Rhino Republicans that are trying to squash him.
I can see that. I see your logic
now.
I see what you're saying. Yep, I see what you're saying. Right? Yeah, they get him under the bus early so they don't have to worry about him, so that he's no longer a threat. Yeah, I think that what would be interesting to see. And I think there's a bunch of people out there, but that would say the same thing. But I would love to see a Trump DeSantis ticket.
Oh, 1,000%.
Right. I can see that. I can see that. I can see that.
I would vote that up and down every day.
The other one that I saw that I thought was interesting, and it's a different concept, right? A different way of looking at things. Is that, and now this is just for shits and giggles, but Trump DeSantis 24, right? And then DeSantis, Trump, and Trump comes in as DeSantis's VP.
See, yeah.
Now, I think that Trump would be way too old for that.
But I can also see, I can also see like something like a new and up and comer like Kerry Lake possibly stepping into that role.
Right. Well, the reason I say that is that I think that a DeSantis Trump, where Trump comes back in as VP, it's never been tried, but I think that would offer up Trump the ability as VP to, over an 8-year period, as president and then again as VP, and I'm not really 100% sure this is even possible, but let's say it is. Trump comes back in as VP, and his only job is to continue the deep rooting out of the deep state for that next 4 years. I said that I'd like, Kristi Noem or Sarah Huckabee Sanders as a presidential, right, with Trump as VP, and let Trump go destroy. His only job is to destroy the deep state. That's it. That's your only job. Day in, day out. That's all you work on. What do you think about that?
I think that would be fantastic if it would actually play out. My problem is I think at his age, he's getting up there to the point where he's going to have to groom some people into that position that would be able to take on the establishment the way he's been able to do so. Right.
And well, I mean, even at his age right now, he's still doing better than Biden did at the same age. I mean,
that's really not saying much there.
No, it is.
Absolutely.
It is. I think it's amazing. I talk to Democrats on a regular basis, and I go, how do you guys excuse this? At what point are you going to say that something has to be done? Somebody has to step up. I mean, here's the thing. There were rumors that Reagan went through the same exact issue in his last term. Okay. Well, they hid it a lot better than they're hiding Joe. And
absolutely.
Now let me ask you this. Let's go off.
Well, Joe was a train wreck before he even before he got into office.
Well, that is true. Let me ask you this. How much down the rabbit hole do you go as far as the Joe that we see today not being the Joe that we know? Is that this guy's, do you see it?
I've wanted to go down that rabbit hole, and it almost seems too far-fetched, but at the same time, there's some legitimate evidence out there to look at, but I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you what. I really don't know. Here's the only evidence that I have. Go take a look at Joe Biden, and all you have to do is go Google it. Go Google it right now. Joe Biden, 2012. Joe Biden 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Biden 2017. And look at images that they kick up on Google for Joe during that period. And then you look at the Joe we got today. And I'm sorry, I look at it and I go, listen, I'm a graphic artist. I own an ad agency, so I do a lot of technical work with imagery and so on behind the scenes. That don't look like the same dude to me. And people go, it's plastic surgery, it's this or it's that. And I go, well, yeah, I get that, but he don't even smile the same. He doesn't. His voice is different. It's like a caricature of Joe Biden. Am I wrong?
No, there's inflections in his voice that are different as well. I've caught that myself. Like I said, there's a legitimate argument for it. It just seems so, for lack of a better term, it seems so damn sci-fi for me to wrap my head around something that extensive.
Well, we just saw
at the same time.
Well, we just saw. I'm going to jump in. Let me jump in on you real quick, because just the other day, did you hear the news the other day that the AP broke? Well, the AP didn't break it. The AP fucked it up. Is that we got to see Zelensky's double in Ukraine.
Oh yeah,
the AP, right? So it would be juvenile of us not to think that the president of the United States of America has a double. Correct? Would you? There's got to be one. You know how I know there's one?
Yeah, I see where you're going with that.
Do you know how? Well, let me ask you this.
It just seems damn sci-fi.
I know.
At the same time, with all the crazy crap that's going on in our society right now, it's hard not to think of the craziest shit you can possibly come up with and go, yeah, that's not possible, because it is right now. I mean, you've got men running around saying that they're women and putting tampons in their ass and saying they've got cramps. You can't. I can't make this shit up. Even if I was a comedian, I couldn't.
I didn't know that's where they were putting them, but it's good to know.
Well, I mean, I'm just guessing that's where they're putting them. I have no idea, but
that sounded like you were coming in with some professional advice there.
I mean, dude, I've seen monkey shit fights in a zoo more organized than the Biden administration. Yeah. What's going on? It's so damn crazy. You can't just count the crazy right now.
Well, let me ask you this.
Because so if you do, you're going to miss something.
Based on what you just said,
yeah.
Can Biden possibly win? Can Biden possibly win the election in 2024 with his record?
Legitimately? No. But the way he did it in 2020? Absolutely. I mean, hell, I've seen Biden couldn't collect enough people to fill a gas station bathroom stall at his speeches during the 2020 election. And yet somehow he gathered more votes than any other president in U.S. history.
A good example.
You're never going to get me to believe that.
Well, a good example of what's going on with it is that Joe, and let's look at human metrics, right? Trump has how many followers on Twitter versus Joe Biden?
Oh, God.
Right. So if people will not take the time, that's because you guys praise Trump as a god and a savior and you're cult members and that's what you guys do. No, Trump had those before he ran for office.
Yeah.
It only increased once he ran, excuse me. And so that's just one metric, right? To your example, Joe can't get anybody to sign up. And here's one that's even more important in 2022 in the midterms. How many Democrats turned their back on Joe and would rather take the risk of losing office than have Joe come campaign for them because they didn't want some debacle at their campaign event and for it to spill over on them?
Well, and they probably didn't want to see him get himself hurt trying to walk up a flight of stairs.
Well, that's what I was saying. There's two Joes, right? The other Joe can run on a beach with a dog. And then there's the Joe that can't walk up a flight of stairs.
Yeah,
that's the America that we live in today. Okay, let me ask you this before
it's insane.
Well, let me ask you this before we move on. Is how's your life better since Joe Biden took office in 2020?
It's not.
Do you expect it to get any better?
I worry every day. No, not under his regime.
Why is that?
No, not at all. I don't. Why? Because every decision he has made things worse. Absolutely every day, I worry about whether or not there's going to be food at the grocery store when I go there. I worry about whether or not I'm going to have the FBI kick in my door and take my ammunition and guns. I worry about my grandkids being able to grow up in a society where they live in a free country and can say what they believe. I worry about whether or not I can even go into my own church and worship without being subjected to some kind of, I don't know, crazy
discrimination
nut job.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or they come in, and this is what's amazing to me. We've had a ton of these mass shootings, and we always say the same thing. We hate them. We don't want mass shootings, but it's not NRA members doing it. It's not conservatives doing it.
No,
it's left-wing wackos doing it.
I'm not sure about your age, but I remember growing up as a kid. I mean, it changed about the time I was getting into like the upper grades and stuff. But back when I was a kid, people in high school were still driving to school with
guns,
with gun racks and windows.
Yep. Yeah, we had a shooting club. We had a shooting club at our school.
There wasn't any shootings.
No, we had a shooting club at our school. You had a 22, or you could either borrow a 22, or you could bring your 22 to school, and there was a shooting club. So yeah, this mentality. Let me give you an example. Kind of my insight on to where I think that where we kind of turned the wrong corner. I'm the son of an evangelical minister, and my dad, his job was inside the church group that he worked with was to go from one location to another in churches that were having problems. Right, the minister had died, the minister's wife had died, and or the minister had run off with the choir leader, or the minister had run off with all the money in the church. Whatever the deal was, my dad came in and he would run the church until they found another minister. So we moved a lot. I went to 14 different schools. Now, I have to preface that by saying that in kindergarten, they bumped me up into first grade, and then I graduated as a junior in high school. So when I got out of school, I was 2 years ahead of everybody, meaning that I was, I graduated at 15, and which I should have never done. It was the worst thing that I ever did. So I've got a lot of school years crammed into a very tight period of time. And we went to 14 different schools. There were 2 years in a row that I went to 3 different school systems in 1 year. And what you learn is how people work, how people talk, how people think, and the dynamics of groups, especially bullies. When you're the new kid, you're always the target of the bully. That's how they become. If you're not a threat to them, they see you as a weakness and how to build their brand, right? They're going to be better and bigger because I beat this kid up over here. Okay, so I learned really early how to deal with bullies. And there's basically 3 phases of dealing with a bully. The first one is to just ignore them. Doesn't generally do anything. The second thing is to be able to berate them, have a greater vocabulary, a greater ability to be a dick, right? Say whatever they whatever they say that comes out of their mouth, you're able to turn it around at them and make them look like whatever you want to make them look like. And the ability to fight. Those three things, you got to, from time to time, you got to punch a bully in the mouth. And that's the 3 stages. And I've said time and time, I'm sorry, how old are you? I'm 57. How old are you?
I'm only 46.
Okay. You sounded much older. You got to quit smoking. Are you a smoker?
I vape.
Okay.
I vape.
Okay.
I used to be a smoker.
Oh, there you go. I can hear it. I used to be a smoker as well. I'm sorry, I lost my point. I lost my direction.
You're talking about bullies.
Bullies. Okay, bullies. So, to stop a bully has no more power than the minions that are standing behind him or her. Right? The bully gets its power from this little group of people, the brown shirts, right? The bureaucracy, the deep state. They only have the power that those people are able to give them. And what we have right now is we have people that don't understand that we're still in 7th grade. What they don't understand is the dynamics are no different than 7th grade playground rules, because that's the rules that we're currently playing under. There's a group of mean girls and bullies who've decided together, this is the way things are going to be. And if you don't like it, get the fuck out or lose all your rights. We'll cancel you. You will lose everything. That's what they've told us, right? And so there's a group of us that say, fuck that. I know how to deal with a bully. Right now, I'm trying to use language. These conversations that we have, this conversation that we have back and forth, this is how we keep from getting to the next stage. Because you see, here's what most people don't understand. And I think that Jordan Peterson has it correct. Jordan Peterson says that what women don't understand about the dynamics of politics from A to Z, and I'm paraphrasing here, is that at the end, men understand that at some point destroying someone's reputation isn't enough. At some point, you got to fucking hit him. You got to fucking hit him in the jaw. You've got to knock them to the ground. Okay, so you've got to show them that they're no longer the bully.
Yeah, absolutely. So my question to you on with that being brought up is this: what happens when Trump's indicted? Because they're already talking about it. So, well,
it's going to happen. It has to happen. Well, let me ask you. Well, let me ask you. What next? Okay, so let me ask you this. I think everybody knows. I think everybody knows what happens next. Nobody wants to say it because it's the big word, right? And it's not CW. It's not civil war. It's revolution. And Trump's indictment doesn't lead to revolution. What's going to happen between now and 2024 will lead to revolution. Listen, we had what's his name? California Congressman Schiff. Schiff went to the microphone every day, went to the podium every day, and told the American people flat out lies that he had proof that President Trump had committed crimes of treason against the American people.
Yeah.
Based on lies. It was all lies. Everything was a lie. Everything was a lie. Okay?
Everything that man has said since he's been in Congress has been a lie.
Well, 100%. Then you've got on top of that, and listen to this. This is imperative to listen to. This is where I lost hope for this nation. When I realized at some point we're going to have to punch the bully in the fucking mouth, that we can't continue to use words because they don't care. They're not listening. They've got cognitive dissonance. They're locked into their ideology. We're fucked. The only way is to fight our way out. And if we don't do it, they're going to continue to take your rights, my rights, and your kids' rights until they've got exactly what they want, control of the entire planet. Here's how I came to that conclusion. When I saw the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop, that was it.
Yeah.
I was chilled to the bone by what I saw. And the reason I say this, that I was chilled to the bone, is because the FBI has had this documentation since 2019, and that little fucker is still walking the streets. Exactly. But they've had that
for over a year before the election.
But regardless of that, they've had it since 2019, and Hunter Biden is not in jail. The documents alone should be enough, right? But the images that I saw, you see, that's what they're not talking about. That's what none of them are talking about right now. They shut up about that real quick, right? I've seen the images. They're disgusting.
The images?
Yes, they're disgusting. Yeah. They're being very quiet about that right now, right? I've seen them. I've seen the imagery. And so what I'm saying is that I knew as soon as I saw that, we are fucked. And here's why we're fucked. If Hunter Biden hasn't been indicted for just 3 of the hundreds of images that were available, just 3 of them, then they're not enforcing the law. We're fucked.
No, and they haven't been. Yeah, no, and part of the problem is the fact that they have figured out a way to manipulate the stupid people.
Yep.
And I've come to terms with the fact that in reality it's scary because, like if you take a look at the average person is, I mean, they're pretty much dumb. And then you realize that half the population is dumber than that. That's where our problem lies.
Yeah, we've been grading on the curve way too long.
Exactly.
Well, that's what I told. I had a neighbor that lived across the street from me, and Marty was a great guy, and Marty was a doctor, but Marty wasn't the smartest doctor, right? I mean, I love the guy to death, but Marty wasn't. Not all doctors are straight A students, right? If you pass, you're still a doctor. Yeah, you can come in with a C plus and still be a doctor, right? So it's important when we look at our politicians, when we look at our experts and we talk to them, we rely on them, is that we keep that in the back of our head that, and I want to put this real clear so people understand it. Politicians are not special. They're human beings. They're just like you and me.
Well, I think some of them are special.
Well, they're special in their own way, but they're no different. They've got the same situation. They got the same fucking drama. They all the bullshit you got in your life. They got it too. And in fact, in addition to that, they've decided I can't really run my own life, so maybe I could get some satisfaction out of running everybody else's. I'll give you this one story. I'll give you this one story. I worked for a number of years. My company ran all of the marketing and advertising for the Republican caucus in the state of Indiana. And I've been able to see everybody. Now, again, I've got a ton of Democrat people that I've worked with over the years, liberals that I've worked with over the years, and I've got stories about them as well. But tonight we're going to be talking about our own. I like to preach a lot at the Republican congregation for taking responsibility for what they should take responsibility for. And
yes,
the reason I say that is I went into an Indiana State rep's home that should have been condemned. On the outside, looked great. This guy looked like a success story. On the inside, it was a horde. On the inside, dog feces everywhere. And this is a person who has been elected to office multiple times in the state of Indiana. Nobody knows what goes on behind the doors of that person.
Yeah.
And that's why.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right.
So the reason I say that, and I bring up the story, and I'm not going to name the guy. He's a nice guy. He's a good guy. That's the way he chooses to live. That's on him. But I've got to think that his judgment is a little skewed. It's just a little, it's like, it ain't quite, it just ain't quite right. He's a little skewed from center. And so I think we've got to start taking a hard look at our people in both parties and saying, listen, they don't live up to the ideology that we expect. I think that what's gone on with Santos is a great example. Santos has been called out by the party. Everybody in his state, they've called him out. No, they're going to rebuke him. He won't get a second term around. He won't. Right. But it's time that American citizens start banding together. So in your area, do you have a community that you can rely on? Is there people there that you talk to and have the same conversations with that we're having now?
I have a group of people that I can talk to and relate to, but for the most part, I live in Illinois.
Yeah, I'm right next door. So yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, we're neighbors. But yeah, I'm sure you're aware of the fat
bastard.
Yeah. He tends to think that he is the king of Illinois, apparently, and he can just do whatever he wants and to hell with the Constitution. And I'm not down with that, but.
Well, let me ask you this.
Yeah, so there's that.
Well, let me ask you this. So,
sure.
What is, and this, I've asked this of several people, what is your red line? What is your line in the sand? At what point, as a person, do you say, okay, listen, I'm done following the rules. I'm done.
Well, I mean, that's a really hard question to answer because there's so many minute little details. It's a multitude of things that it's not just one thing. It's got to be a series of things. It's kind of like what the Constitution says. After a long train of abuses and usurpations, that's when the line's crossed. It's after a series of
well, okay. So let me. I'll cut you off. Let me cut you off. Okay. So,
okay.
If you are you a wait until they come for me, or are you when my neighbor needs me? What line? What side of that fence are you on?
I'm right on it.
That's an honest answer.
Yeah. If my neighbor needs me, it's going to depend. Is it the asshole that wakes me up?
Well, when I say neighbor, I mean an ally.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. I'm just being facetious. In reality, it depends on the circumstances and what comes down to. But the finest line for me is, don't come after my grandkids. Don't come after my family. If you come at,
but aren't they already doing that?
Whatever, I speak my mind. But if you come after my family because you're trying to get to me, I will eliminate your entire fucking bloodline from the planet.
But aren't they already doing that? Aren't they already doing that though?
To a degree, yes.
Okay, well, so what degree? What degree? See, that's the thing. That's the thing. That's what I have to. That's what I start looking at. Right? Is that if you know the story of our founding fathers, they had a line in the sand, and they had a community of people around them that had the same line in the sand, and that's what the powers that be have tried to disrupt over the last 2 or 3 years. They've tried to break up our communities. We are in a position right now. I'm sitting in a condo in Indiana, just outside of Indianapolis, broadcasting to the fucking planet. 40 years ago, this was unimaginable. Governments can control the masses when they can control the information. They can't control it now. So a few hundred $100, you can talk to the entire planet. They've got to bring this back in. Yep. So my question again is, and it's interesting because everybody's it's kind of quasi out there in the ether. What is your delineation when you say they come from my kids or they come from that? That's still not a defined red line, right? That's kind of something that says you're going to do something. Because see, I know what mine is. Right?
Okay.
Mine is very clear. Mine is a Bundy Ranch moment. Are you familiar with Bundy Ranch?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
That's when I'm talking about my neighbor.
Was a travesty of justice altogether.
Yeah. I think the Bundy Ranch, I think that Ruby Ridge, and to an extent Waco. I think that when the American government decides that it's time for a group of people not to have a voice anymore because they don't want them to have a voice, I think that we as Americans have to come together from both sides of the aisle, regardless of what your ideology is. Because here's the thing. If they'll come after those people today, they'll come after you tomorrow. I'm not religious. I don't push Christianity. I don't push any of that. But every time I hear an assault against the church, that's just one more move against me. People go, well, Kramer, how can that be? You're not religious. You're not in the church. You don't belong to any denomination. How can they be a harm to you? Because they're whittling away at the edge. So that's why I have to speak up now for churches. And I've told ministers, I go in and I have talks. I go, listen, you got to start speaking up. You have a group of people in front of you. You've got to wake up your flock to what's happening in our nation. There's a group of people. In fact, on TikTok, just a couple of days ago, there was a live on TikTok where for 45 minutes, a dude was up saying that 100% abortions, all 9 months. And he had 10,000 people in that live. People are flocking to it. They want an excuse to live a hedonistic lifestyle without any of the consequences of living a lifestyle like that. Yeah. So I think that what we have to do is we have to come together and collectively in a communication or in a community is communicate with each other what our red lines are. And that when you hear that your neighbor is having a problem, when you hear that someone in your community is having a problem, that you're there to show up in force and say, you will not overstep.
I would say for me, the line in the sand is when you're stripping somebody of their constitutional rights. And we've seen degrees of that over the past couple of years. I really was against the entire lockdown thing. I thought that was an absolute joke. But when you and I spoke out a lot over that. But when you start stripping people of their constitutional rights, that's when you're going to see a lot more people getting actually involved. The problem is they're doing it in grades and just trying to ease.
Well, no, they're not. No, they're not. No. I disagree. What happened in 20? Well, what happened in 2020? Let's just talk about Pennsylvania. I'm only going to talk about one state. The actions taken in 2020 with the election of 2020 were unconstitutional by the state constitution of Pennsylvania. Unconstitutional. Pennsylvania should not have been counted. Pennsylvania ran their elections illegally, contrary to state law. Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin ran their elections contrary to state law. Now, did it overthrow the election? I don't know. You can't talk about those things on YouTube and some of these other platforms that we're streaming on tonight. But what I can say is that what they did was contrary to state constitution and state law. So nobody stood up against that. Nobody, except for those that showed up, for those of us that showed up at the Capitol on January 6th, made an effort to say, hey, listen, what just happened in the state of Pennsylvania and other states around the nation was contrary to state law and state constitution. That's what we have to go back to. Now, here's the thing. We are a nation of laws. And either we obey them all the fucking time or they don't fucking matter at all. Because if it doesn't matter for Hunter Biden, then it doesn't matter to me. If Hunter Biden can go be a fucking crackhead and get a gun and not be indicted for fucking lying on the forms, then I shouldn't have any problems walking to a goddamn restaurant without a fucking mask on. But that's just me.
No, I agree 1,000%. Like I said,
my point is that people won't stand up. People will not do that in public. People will not raise their voice, and that's the problem right now. We've got too many Karens and not enough what I'm going to call men. When I mean men, I don't mean men and, you know what? Americans. Let's just do that. We've got too many fucking Karens and not enough goddamn Americans in this country anymore. People who say, you don't have the right to tell me that. Fuck you. My rights are my rights. I don't care what the fuck you say. And walk away.
I blame the man bun.
Well, that's where their testosterone is, and as soon as they cut that fucker off, it's gone. Did you see the report the other day? Did you see the report the other day from the military that 77% of the youth eligible to be inducted into the military, if we had a draft tomorrow, 77% would not qualify. And it doesn't even have, we don't even have to have the draft. I should have even included that. 77% of our youth, military-aged men and women, 77% do not qualify to be in the military. 77%. 77% because of obesity, education, criminal background, can't be in the military. The pool
or mental health.
Well, that's the other one. The pool that they have to pull out of, right, is a little more than 400,000. Out of 300 million people in this country, only 400,000 are available to the military services: Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, Reserves, and Space Force. 400,000. Split it up, you don't have enough. We are in deep doo-doo in this country, and the American people have to realize that, again, and I keep saying it, unless they start raising their voices and stop expecting fellow Americans to get up out of bed and go fight for their freedoms, when they finally realize that Kramer doesn't get up in the morning and think about you, and I don't think about your needs. I think about mine first. I feed my belly first, right? I don't give two shits about you or yours or anything else. I defend my rights when I get up in the morning. That's what I do. And what you have to do is start defending your rights and getting groups of people together to defend your rights together. Why do you think the left is so strong in what they do? Because they understand one thing: union. That's what they understand. The left is very, very good at union. They can gather a group of people and make them believe one thing or have them believe one thing, and then I'll go fight for you. Why are conservatives and the right bad at that? Well, because we're individualist. We don't need groups. I can do it myself. You've said it. Others have said it.
Leave me alone and let me live my life.
Right. And that's the way that we think. The left doesn't think like that. And we've got to stop thinking as these survivalists out here that can survive on our own. I hate to tell it to you. We can't survive without the left. We can't. We can't survive without the other side. If we got rid of all of the liberals tomorrow, half of them just disappeared off the face of the earth, guess what would happen? We'd start infighting amongst ourselves, because we always need the other side. We need the enemy. We need somebody. That's how it works. We can't do without them. They must be in the picture. That's human nature. You got to have it. So no, I don't hate these people.
Yeah,
do you hate anybody?
You don't really know what you have until you see what's on the other side.
Right. Do you hate anybody?
I've got a few people.
Oh, you shouldn't. I about spit that out. There's nobody that I hate. I've got people that I dislike. There's people that I don't have anything to do with anymore. Some of them are family members. I don't hate anybody, and I'll give anyone the opportunity to be a dick. Right? I don't care who you are. You're a little bit younger, but I think it's interesting. We grew up, my generation grew up with Archie Bunker, the Jeffersons. Oh
yeah.
Oh, what was his name? I'm trying to remember. What was the name of the show? The
Sanford and Son.
Sanford. Oh, that's a classic. I wasn't even going there. That's a totally different genre. Sanford and Son that's the cream. That's the top of the top. That is top shelf bourbon right there. I'm trying. What was the do with JJ? What was his name? Good Times. Good Times.
Yeah.
Right. Good Times. I'll put that there because these were not a lot of these Norman Lear shows that came out in the 70s. And here's the difference between what we have today and what we had back then. Today it's calling out people for hate. And then as soon as you call them out, you belittle them and you cancel them. The difference back in the 70s is what we did with people that had ideas contrary to ours is that we used our words to make fun of them, but also include them. Yeah. That we still love you, right? Yeah. You just got to change your ways. Yeah. And today it's that if we don't agree with you, you and yours must die. Your entire lineage must die, and you must pass away from earth forevermore. And I think that's what's dangerous. So do you think that we have?
It's an all or nothing mentality.
It is.
That's dangerous.
It is. Do you think that there's any chance that we save the republic based on what you're seeing right now? Do you think that, and let me remind you that today Rachel Levine said that within the next 2 years, kids 13, 14, 15 having sex changes will be normalized. The wheels are moving. What do you think?
Well, I don't agree with Randall Levine or anything else he says. But my thing is sorry if I don't care what until there is a way to completely redo your DNA. You just got your dick chopped off is basically what it comes down to. And I don't even know if he's had that surgery. So quite honestly,
well, does it matter?
Joke.
Does it matter? I mean, here's the thing. The thing.
I mean, it doesn't to me. But if you want to pretend, that's fine. But I don't have to pretend with you.
You're exactly right. Like, that's the whole issue.
That's your. Yeah, if you want to play make-believe, you're welcome to do so. I don't care. You can pretend you're a pretty unicorn or whatever the hell it is that you want to believe. But the minute you tell me that I have to pretend that you're a pretty unicorn as well, I'm not playing that.
Well, not only pretend, but I have to say that you're a pretty unicorn in reality. It's not pretense. They don't want pretense. They demand that you admit that they're what they say they are. That's the issue. I'll pretend with you.
Pretend. I don't give a shit.
No, they're demanding that we admit that. Well, I told a guy one time, he was dressed up, and he goes, what is he? How do I got to get this right? He says, you refuse to admit that I'm a woman? And I went, no, I refuse to be a part of your psychosis. Big difference.
Right.
Big difference. Okay, so in your neck of the woods, over in Illinois, what part of the state are you in?
I'm in the central area.
Okay, central. Okay, so the economy in central Illinois, how's it going over there?
Well, we're just outside of the Peoria area, and I'm sure people have heard, that's become a shithole.
Yep.
It was ranked, the 12th worst city to live in or something? I don't remember, some crap like that. But they keep trying to sugarcoat it in the news and tell you it's not. But the reality is, it seems like every day you see a shooting going on or something in downtown Peoria. So, I mean, there's that. Right now, we really don't have any food crises other than I think the baby food formula issue is still an issue, because I still see tags saying you can only have so many at a time, which is an absolute travesty. Prices of everything is through the roof, and of course the gas tax is absolutely astronomical, because Fatty's got to pay for his lunch up there in Chicago. Other than that, not really a whole lot. The only thing I take any kind of joy in is the fact that you've got the Chicago Bears leaving Chicago. They're going to Arlington, and you no longer have Beetlejuice going to be in office soon.
That's a plus.
That's a nice thing.
Yep.
Because, I mean, quite honestly, what she's done to Chicago is so devastating. It's going to take decades to straighten that whole thing out. And the fact that they're losing all the money that the Chicago Bears brought in tax dollars, that's going to be, I just find that absolutely humorous. So, I mean, not that I watch football anymore. I used to be a big Bears fan.
Same here.
The whole sports
same here.
They just, they went too woke. All the sports went woke, and I can't follow them anymore. But I think it's funny that they're losing all that tax dollars.
Well, I think that the issue with, especially the NFL, all sports teams have had this issue, is that their wokeism, right? There's a group of people that go, you know what? I'm here to watch the competition. I don't want to be preached at. I don't want to be told what a terrible person I am, or, according to the new ESG ideology, that because I'm white, that somehow I endorsed slavery from 200 years ago. I don't want that. I resent that. And I think that the American people hopefully the American people are starting to wake up. We've got a group of people in this country that can justify about anything. And so we get to the point.
One thing,
go ahead.
When it came to the sports situation, where I finally drew the line and walked away was when the New Orleans Saints had Jacoby Blake name put on their helmets. Yep. And you remember Jacoby Blake, right?
Yep.
He was the young man that was shot.
Yep.
Okay. Do you remember what he was being arrested for?
Yeah, because he just beat up his girlfriend and stuff. Had he tried to kill her? Was that the case?
Yeah. And do you remember how old she was when he first raped her?
She was 14, 15 years old, if I remember right.
There you go. Yes. So he was a pedophile.
Yep.
The minute they started supporting a pedophile over the police department, that's where they lost me. And there was never an apology about it when the truth came out about the whole Jacoby Blake story and what it was actually going on. Nothing. They just blew over it like it was nothing. No, dude, it was big. It was big. It was real big for me.
Well, again,
You're not going to just sit there and
I keep going back to
the police,
but I
pedophile.
I keep going back to the same thing. I keep going back to the same premise, that life has not changed since 7th grade. The dynamics of relationships have not changed. The bullies are still fucking bullies. The mean girls are still fucking mean girls. The jocks are still jocks. The nerds are still nerds. The hoods are still hoods. The troublemakers are still troublemakers. Nothing's changed. The scale's gotten bigger. Now here's what I keep trying to get people's heads wrapped around. With as corrupt as the system is it possible that a Charles Manson type character is in control of our nation, is in control of pulling the strings on the people, has gotten into a position of power? A psychotic has gotten into a position of power, or a group of psychotics have gotten into a position of power to where they can pull the strings behind corporations to make us do what they want us to do and tell us to shut the fuck up when they want us to shut the fuck up. Is that possible? And the more and more we look and the deeper and deeper we dig, that's what we're finding to be true, is that is the case. There is a very small group of people on this planet calling all the shots. It's no longer something that's sci-fi.
I think George Soros was just a face.
Oh, and he's just one of them. And here's the thing. He's the face we saw.
He's just a face for the people behind.
Right.
Behind him.
Exactly. Because somebody else is backing Soros.
That's all he is.
Somebody is backing Soros. Yep. I was looking at Joe Rogan's, there's a Joe Rogan podcast. By the way, if you're drinking with us tonight, go ahead. Tonight, right now is the time to do it. This is Woodford Reserve with a little spring water and a spring water ice cube. It did not freeze correctly. So don't blame the cloudiness. It should be clear, but anyway, I digress. The rabbit hole stuff that Alex Jones was doing 10 years ago. And now I want to preface this by saying, I think that Alex Jones is a hot mess, right? But even a hot mess can be right. Even a broken clock can be right twice a day. And I think that Alex Jones,
until the arms fall off.
Well, that is true. I think that Alex Jones has been right on a number of different issues of conspiracy in this country long enough. And one of the things that I like to talk about is not conspiracy, but fact. The things that I've been involved with in politics and the things that I've seen behind the scenes in advertising and marketing, those are the issues that I bring forward, because that's how. It's not anecdotal. It's what happened. It's not just my experience. It's what fucking happened, right? So these are the things that gave me the insights to go, the system isn't what they're saying it is. It's not what we've been told that it is. It's not just. Yeah. No, not everybody is not. What is it? Nancy Pelosi says, no one's above the law. Yes, there are. I can tell you who's above the law. I can tell you several people that are above the law. There's a gentleman.
It's typically the people that scream that are the ones that are above the law.
Exactly. I'll give you an example. In the state in the state of Indiana, there's a chemical company here in Indianapolis, owned by a billionaire. He has since passed away. That's why I can tell this story. Bill Mays owned Mays Chemical. Mays Chemical is a huge chemical provider nationally. He's a multi-billionaire, very deep into the pockets of politicians and special interest groups and so on throughout the state, but basically had an unsullied reputation. He was in publications, he was in radio stations, he had bought into everything in the market. He was invested in Central Indiana, done a great job, built quite the empire. I got a phone call from his attorney, Jim Voiles. Jim Voiles is a high-powered attorney in the state of Indiana. If you are a rich person and you get in trouble with the law, you call Jimmy Voiles. He's the guy to call. Great guy. Mm-hmm. He's a Democrat. He's a liberal. We don't agree on policy, but he's a great guy. And great. He's even more than being a great guy, he's an even greater attorney than he is a great guy. And I think he's a great guy. But got called by his office, and I own an advertising agency. We do a lot. What our job is we come in with groups that have problems, that can't see the path, and we figure out how to get there. That's kind of our claim to fame. We get you there, right? And so Jimmy called us and says, listen, I got an issue. He says, I've got a client who's been accused of molesting a 5-year-old boy, and we need to see if there's an angle on this creatively that we can look at that we're not thinking of right now. And so we said, okay. So we came in and that's what we did. We listened to the story. We read the affidavit. We got all of the witness testimony. And then we said, well, let's build a 3D model of the environment and see if what they're saying is possible, because it was very specific. The witness, who was a 12-year-old girl, was being very specific about what she said she saw and from where. And so, without going into a lot of detail about the other people involved, we go into the home, we measure the house, we get all the parameters of the facilities, we come back in, we build a 3D model. And that was on a Thursday that we were first called. So over the weekend, we built this 3D model, and on Monday morning, met with the Marion County DA's assistant DA. It wasn't Carl Brizzi, but it was his assistant DA. And we sat with him and one other gentleman whose name I forget, the client, who was Bill Mays, and Jimmy Voiles, the attorney, and myself. And we presented what we had. And what we showed was that according to the information that was available and through the affidavits, that the little girl's testimony would not hold up in court, because we could show that from where she said she saw what she said she saw, it was impossible to have seen that. And she would have had to have her shoulder 3 feet into a wall and at 9 feet to be able to see what she said she saw. It was physically impossible from her testimony for her to have seen what she said she saw from her vantage point. Couldn't happen. Mm-hmm. And so that conversation was had. I was asked to leave the room. I waited in the waiting room. When I came back in, they brought me back in and said, okay, everything's good. Send us your bill. And that was it. And that's the last we heard about Bill Mays and this 5-year-old boy. The reason I bring that up is because Bill Mays is a black gentleman. So a lot of what happens in this country, there's no systemic racism in this nation. If there were systemic racism in this nation, they would have just kicked down Bill's door, dragged him out of bed, and taken him to jail. That didn't happen. No, because he's rich, because he's a billionaire, he got the benefit of color, but that color is green. And the reason I say that is if a 12-year-old girl with her mom went to the police department and signed an affidavit against you, do you think that they would allow you to meet with your attorney first and present a 3D model showcasing your innocence before they arrested you?
No, not at all.
That's why the system is broken.
That's the reality we live in. Everything's bought and paid for.
Right. So I look at it, my perspective, the content that I put up and the stuff that we do as a group, we come from that perspective. Our insights are that we're deep inside government. Our people work for agencies. They see the sin on a daily basis. I don't mean to brag. It's not me bragging. What James O'Keefe does, we do a similar type job, but we're working behind the scenes in the system. And we can see it. So when I tell people things are coming up, or this is going to happen, or this is going to happen, it's not because I'm fucking guessing. It's because the people that I work with, they're working in those industries, or they're working in that parts of the government. They're going, listen, Kramer, I can't say anything about it here, but, and that's what we've got going on. You know, until people start speaking up, and again, I keep going back to community. Until we get back to community, to where you know in your community who you can count on, those 20, 30, 40, 50 men and women, but it's mainly men. Because what happens next? What happens next if we're right? And I don't want to be right, but at the way that I got several comments tonight. I'm 65 years old. I don't know what's going to happen next. Right? Imagine you've lived
towards it.
Right. So let me ask you this. Do you see a political way out of this at this point? Do you see a political solution?
Do I see one? No. Do I hope for one? Yeah. I'm not the smartest man in the world, so I'm hoping there's an answer to all these problems. However, I don't know how it's going to be possible. The only thing I can do is put my faith in God right now. That's honestly what I do.
Yeah. Well,
but the reality of the situation says, because they're so ingrained in every little situation, in every aspect of our government, our law enforcement, and everything else, it makes it extremely difficult. The day I'll start having hope that this can change around again is when we see people like Hunter Biden being indicted for crimes that he's committed.
I agree.
I mean, that's when I'll share a glimmer of hope. But until I see that, then I'm going to continue to believe that what's going on in our society is going to continue either out in the open like it has been the past couple of years, or behind the curtain like it's usually been.
Yep. Well, I think that one of the things that COVID did for all of us is that it allowed us to take a little bit of time and step back.
Mm-hmm.
Take a little time and step back and take a look at what was important in our lives. And I know with my business, my company, is that we took a huge hit. We were very invested in live events, live programming, a lot of stuff that was interactive and so on. And we were in the automotive industry. There was all these industries that we were in, but every one of them got hit hardest by the shutdowns and so on. And so,
yeah,
what I looked at was, do I really want to try to rebuild a business over again? Do I want to start from scratch and rebuild? And I said, fuck it. No, why would I do that? And there's a ton of Americans that have done the same thing. Now, here's the thing. I haven't lost hope. There's still hope out there, but I'm not going to build onto a system that is nothing more than a house of cards. I think that's asinine to do. I think the thing that we have to do is that with what I'm doing is I've refocused my energies. I'm semi-retired, right? America, I was very successful. I did a great job, right? America, I thank you so much for the opportunities that were put in front of me and that I took advantage of. That's it. Because that's the thing, by the way. You can put opportunities in front of people all day long, unless they take advantage of them, right? And get positive outcomes, nothing else matters. Anyway, with all of that being the case, the only thing, and I think that you hit on this earlier, the only thing that is important to me now is being able to protect the rights of my boys and my grandchildren. That's it.
Yeah.
That's my only mission. That's my only job. They have the right to grow up like I did. They have the right to be able to go to school without being indoctrinated into every fucking little shattering fucking dream of what do you call them? You know, rainbow fucking unicorn shitting fairy fart dust. I don't know. I'm so fucking tired of trying to walk across eggshells talking about this subject. Listen, it's 3 to 5% of the population. Fuck off.
Yep.
The rest of us are done with it. I don't care what you suck. I don't care what you lick. I don't care what you put your dick into. I don't care what you have stuck up your hoo-ha. Don't give two shits.
That's right.
Couldn't care less.
Yep.
Keep it to yourself.
Doesn't matter to me one bit.
No, keep it to yourself.
That's right.
Because I don't come in and go, hey, guess how I ate my wife's pussy last night? Oh my God. Right? It was so fucking hot. She was sucking my dick. And it was, I'm going to wear a shirt to work every day that lets you know I got a fucking blowjob last night. Because that's what the flag means to me.
Like the whole. Did you ever see any of those gay pride parades in Chicago?
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't let my kids go to them.
They've got signs and stuff up that's, blah 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 blah, and I take it in the man. If I put a sign up that said I fuck pussy, I'd be there would be all kinds of groups that were ready to cancel me. Like, I don't understand how that shit's okay, and yet it's not okay for me to do me.
It's because that's what the Democrats do. They find a marginalized group. They go they go campaign to them. Hey, listen, guys, we understand that people don't understand you. And so come on board and we'll protect you. If you give us your votes, if you give us your power, then we'll protect you. And we said in the 2000s, when they were the early 2000s, when they were talking about national gay marriage. Go back and look at the writing that was done. I was part of it. We were predicting that if you allowed gay marriage, the study showed it. If you allowed gay marriage, that the next thing they would go for are kids. And we were called crazy. Yep. You're crazy. You're anti-gay. You're anti-gay. That information, that's not, no, you're anti-gay. You're anti-gay. Now, if you say something against a pedophile, you're the problem. Well, they're MAPs.
Yeah.
They're minor attracted persons.
Oh, but the hell they are. No, they're pedophiles.
They're pedophiles.
I will never. I will never call them a map because they ain't got no direction in life whatsoever.
Well, you're right. But that's how we've gotten here. And so what I say is the way that I look at things is not just who I am as a person in my experiences. I look at what they've done. I look at what they've said, and I look at how they work, and how dare you judge them? How dare you ask a question about them? How dare you phobic of some sort or another? We've gone through nearly 20 years of this for the longest time, and I think it's interesting that Bill Maher was at the tip of the spear with political correctness when it started, kind of making fun of it, right? Mm-hmm. Then became a part of it, and is now coming out on the other side going, wait a minute, we've gone too far. Because now we, comedians, cannot make jokes. We can't make fun of other people because everybody's got a fucking chip on their shoulder. I think it's interesting.
He was canceled from ABC and then went to HBO over that bullshit.
Yeah, because of political correctness.
I think it was ABC.
I think you're right. Yeah, it would have been ABC at the time. Yeah.
Yep.
The thing is,
listen, Kramer, listen, I got to get off here.
Okay, buddy. Well, I appreciate it.
I love your content.
Thank you so much for calling in.
Keep doing you, because I've been following you since you first had your first TikTok group, and I've been following you ever since. So keep it up, man.
I appreciate it. Thanks for joining me tonight. It was a great show. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you.
Call anytime. See you. Bye-bye. And that right there is America, folks. Those are the people in the flyover states that politicians overlook. We're not important. We pay our taxes. We go to work. We have a work ethic. We show up on time. We do it our job, and we don't show up to march against them. We don't matter. I'll give you an example real quick of what I mean by that and how the government works. My oldest son, Michael, great kid, kind heart. We call him our, he's our sweet boy. My younger son, not so much. Michael has the biggest heart on the face of the planet. He really does. And wasn't really a student. It wasn't looking to be a scholar, didn't want to really go to college. He was just that kid in the middle. And he got forgotten. The system doesn't look at kids like that. No, what they look at is they look at kids like my youngest son, who is 80% deaf. Matt got so many programs and so many opportunities and so many different groups or things that he could do that Matt really excelled because he had options. He wasn't just part of the gray sheep that go down this channel. He had people in government that their job was to look out for his success. Their only role was to make him successful. Because then they could tout those records. We took a deaf kid. We got him a job. He's successful. Look at us. We're the angels of society. That's what I saw happen. Two great kids, raised in the same home, the same ideology, but how the system treats one child versus another makes a huge difference. So you have to ask yourself, your children, your community, how are they being treated? Are they being indoctrinated just to be a worker bee in the new system, whatever that is, and to be afraid of the system lest they be canceled? TikTok, Instagram, they all want fame. And so what they'll do to get fame is they'll kowtow to whatever the community standards are, whatever the guidelines are, they'll keep their mouth shut so they can be a star, potentially. To be a star, you can't abide by the community guidelines. All stars of our past, from the very beginning in 1776, flouted the community guidelines. I'm not paying your fucking taxes, King. I'm not going to do what you want me to do. No, you cannot put your military in my home. No, you cannot search me because you don't like the look on my face today. No, you cannot do this, and no, you cannot do that. And yes, I will own firearms. Our nation was built on revolution. I'm going to say it again so you fully understand. Our nation was built on revolution. Americans talk a big game, but we haven't had to deliver on that talk for a number of years. We haven't had to hold our own to task. We've spent trillions of dollars holding other nations' leaders to task, but we haven't done it to our own in almost 250 years. It may be over 250 years. Is it over 250? No, it's not 250 yet, is it? No, I don't think so. 1776? No, it's not. Right? No, I don't think so. I'm doing drunk math in my head right now. If you don't get your head wrapped around that, if you don't understand that the position that we're in right now in this nation, from your city, county, state to the federal government, is no different than that of King George of 1776, you're not looking at the situation as the way it is. Our founding fathers never thought that you would have to work even after you retired to be able to keep your land, that your land would be owned by the state. Well, your land isn't owned by the state. If you've got to pay taxes on your land, you're owned by the state. If you can never stop working because you have to pay the land tax, you're owned by the state. You're a slave of the state. There's nowhere in the Constitution that gives the federal government the authority to take your pay. Nowhere. They made it up. It doesn't exist. Yet you do it. So people ask all the time, how can we do something? How can we? You have to do something. There's no we. There's only you. You have to take measure. You have to stand. You have to be the leader in your community. There's no we. There's only you. You have to do these things. You have to take a measure of who you are and what you want and say, I refuse to go any further. I'm going to be the leader that I'm looking for. I'm tired of looking for somebody else to stand up for me. I'm going to do it for myself because the only person who will fight as hard as I will for my freedoms is me. That's what you need to do. Stop expecting somebody else to get up in the morning and go fight for your goddamn freedoms. You have to start doing that. You have to mandate what happens next in your life. You have to do that. It's not on me. It's not on your neighbor. It's not on the politicians. It's not on Trump. Stop waiting for a savior and be the leader that you want. Be the person in your community that is making change. If it requires getting in the streets, then fucking get in the streets. If it requires calling out people by name, call them out by name. Public shaming is something that we should probably be doing on a much larger scale based on what we now know. We've got an FBI. We've got a CIA. Let me put it this way, folks. And this is what you have to understand. I grew up as a child being told my entire life, we don't know what happened to Kennedy. We don't know. Somebody blew off his head, and we think it was this agitator. You know, hey, was it the guy in the book depository? Well, that's what all the evidence is. So yeah, well, that's the story we're going with. And then we learned that it was our CIA and FBI working in conjunction with each other, that fucking killed a president in 1963, and nobody in this fucking nation cares. Because if the FBI and the CIA working in conjunction with each other in 1963 were able to carry out the assassination of a sitting president in broad fucking daylight, don't you think they have the capability, the ability to rig an election in 2020? I would have to say the odds are pretty good. Did it happen? I don't know. But based on their history, it's fully possible. That's what you got to get your head wrapped around. I'm going to close tonight with this. If you're looking for a leader to come save you, you're already lost. If you're waiting for something to happen on the horizon that's going to give you a warning as to the time when you rise up and you start to let your voice be heard, you're already fucking lost. This moment in time, right now, is no different than that moment when the meteor supposedly hit our Earth. Because I don't know if it's a true story or not. They surmise it is. It may or may not be true, but I'm going to use this as this analogy, so stick with me. Okay, so that meteor had already hit the planet. We're led to believe that creatures all across the planet, they were going to be killed. They didn't know they were already dead. That's the moment we're in right now. That moment, the impact is already here. They've told us what they're going to do. They've told us what they want to do. They've told us what they want to achieve. And the only way that it stops is you. I'll stand up. Will you? I'll let my voice be heard. I'm already doing it. Not just my voice, but my face, my likeness, everything about me. They know everything about Tim Kramer from Indianapolis. Anybody who wants to know already knows. Folks, the message that we've been carrying for the last 2 years has been the same. We have not wavered. Truth above all else. Fact above all else. If you followed our content, the CramerSez content over the last 2.5 years, which was a fluke, by the way, I never intended to be here. But if you followed that content over the last 2.5 years, go back and look on it. You can find it on Telegram. You can find it on Instagram, TikTok. Not so much. It's hit and miss on TikTok. But if you go back and you look at the content over the last 2.5 years, I've told you the same thing over and 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 over again. It's you. You have the power. You. That's why I keep asking people, what's your line in the sand? At what point are you done? I'm done. I no longer play by their rules. I go up on TikTok. I say whatever the fuck I want to say. Okay, they burn my account down. So what? I come back. Well, Kramer, that's fine because, well, that's what you do, man. And you got big accounts and you got a lot of people that follow you. You know how you got a lot of people following me? You become a fucking leader. That's how you get followers. You lead. That's how you get followers. You want to be the leader in your community? Stand up. It's time. It's 1774. We've got an election in 2024. Let me take that back. It said I got to do my math right again. It's 1775. I'm thinking 2 years out from an election. No, we're less than that. We're in 1775. 1775. And you can either stand there and continue to do what you've been doing, which is nothing, complaining, screaming at the wind, or you can be the leader that you're looking for. You can be the leader that you're expecting. You can be the leader that that your area needs. Do you think that our founding fathers, do you think that they stepped back and thought of themselves as founding fathers? Do you think that that's what happened? Do you think that that's what went through their mind? No, they were fighting for their freedoms, folks. They weren't expecting to be in the history books. They weren't expecting to be effigied on the side of mountains. I think that's a correct word. You have to draw that line in the sand for you. You have to do it. And you can't wait for a leader, Trump, DeSantis, or anybody else to come in and save you. I don't know DeSantis personally. I don't know Trump personally, but I have worked in politics at the highest levels federally and throughout the Midwest for a number of years. And I can tell you this from my personal experience: they do not wake up in the morning thinking about how they're going to go fight for you. They just don't. They really don't. Trump may be the exception. All these other people ran for office and had to suck dick all the way to the top or where they are right now. That's the way the system works. I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine, you show up at my event, I'll show up at your event. That's the system. That's what it is. And by the way, that's not just the US system. That's the system across the planet. What you have to understand is that these people running for office want power. I think Eisenhower was the hardest to convince, almost like Washington. Washington had to be convinced to be president. Eisenhower had to be convinced to run. And what was his warning? What did he say before he left office? What did he warn us of? The military-industrial complex. Everybody remembers that. But what part do they forget? They forgot the part about technology. The technology would be the other stranglehold on the American people. Eisenhower in the 50s, nearly 60 years ago, 65 years ago. What are we living in today, folks? Eisenhower, on his way out, told you exactly where we would be today. We're here. So either you've got to go back and start believing in the voices from the past, the voices of these ghosts that are telling you what your future is going to be. Ayn Rand was not wrong when she wrote Atlas Shrugged. I think it's humorous. I think it's ironic that the railroads are fucking disintegrating in front of our faces. And if you read Ayn Rand, it was all about the fucking railroads. It was about our fucking infrastructure. When the infrastructure implodes, that's when the nation is lost. When we can't communicate from one community to another, when we can't transport goods from one community one community to another, we are fucking lost as a nation. So you, sitting there right now, watching this, listening to this, or whatever, if you're still stuck here, you have to finally accept your responsibility, your role. And what happens next in this nation, and what your red line in the sand is, and how far you'll allow a federal government that has no authority over you other than those items listed in the Constitution, how much longer you allow the EPA and the FDA and all of these other 3-letter agencies reign over your life. And how do you build a community? A group of men and women. Yes, because that's all there are. Men and women that will come to your aid, come to your assistance when you make the call. And when given, you will heed the call to come aid them. That's the community that we need to build. With that being said, I am out of here. Thank you so much for joining. This is the Kramer Says podcast. My name is Kramer. We will be back tomorrow or as soon as we can. See you then. Bye-bye.
Get more at CramerSez.com. CramerSez.com.